Friday, June 7, 1963, the President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, came to the U.S. Naval Ordnance Test Station, China Lake, California. This was the first time in its 20-year history that the station had been honored by a presidential visit. This film reports the events of that day. On the previous day, Mr. Kennedy, while aboard the USS Kitty Hawk, had witnessed demonstrations of the Navy's capability to move through a hostile air and submarine environment in order to project U.S. Navy and Marine power into any trouble spot in the world. Among the dignitaries accompanying the President were California Governor Edwin G. Brown, United States Senator Claire Engel, Congressman Harlan Hagen, Secretary of the Navy Fred Korth, and key military advisors, including Chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff General Maxwell Taylor, Chief of Naval Operations Admiral George Anderson, Commandant of the Marine Corps General David M. Shoup, and the Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet Admiral John H. Side. During his visit to Knott, Mr. Kennedy was briefed on many of the research, development, testing, and evaluation achievements of the station. In the 20 years of the Naval Ordnance Test Station's existence, these goals have been achieved through the teamwork of operationally experienced military personnel and technically expert scientists, engineers, and technicians. From the Naval Air Facility, Mr. Kennedy drove to the demonstration area at an instrumented Knott's missile range to observe an exhibition of U.S. naval power as support for tactical ground forces. Escorting the President and the official party was the station commander, Captain Charles Blenman. The 50-minute briefing covered a review of current close support tactical weapons and a display of Knott's weapons still in the development and evaluation stage. The firepower demonstration was a segment of Mr. Kennedy's tour of Western United States military establishments. Hosting his visit to West Coast naval installations was the First Fleet, commanded by Vice Admiral Robert T.S. Keith. To introduce each event, Commander Joseph E. Schwager, Executive Officer of the Air Development Squadron 5, identified each weapon and described its purpose. Air Development Squadron 5 evaluates all air attack weapons prior to release to the fleet.
Boatswain, pipe all hands. Mr. President, distinguished guests, your host is the Naval Ordnance Test Station, often called NOTS, a laboratory of the Bureau of Naval Weapons. Most of the weapons you will see today were born at this station. They were conceived in Michelson Laboratory, which you will visit later, and developed on these ranges. The purpose of our program is to contrast stockpiled limited war weapons, their tactics and their effects, with some of the more effective limited war weapons now under development. Military and civilian personnel of the Naval Ordnance Test Station, the Naval Air Facility, and Air Development Squadron 5, all based at China Lake, Carrier Air Group 16 operating from USS Oriskany, and Carrier Air Group 11 operating from USS Kitty Hawk, have combined their efforts into this demonstration. Photo reconnaissance before and after an airstrike provides the Fast Carrier Task Force with hard intelligence. A flare-equipped chance-fought Crusader photographed our demonstration target complex the other night to simulate a carrier pre-strike reconnaissance sortie. Now, this photograph was shown to you prior to your departure from Kitty Hawk. The same pilot now approaches, sir, to fire a photo flash salute in your honor while executing a loop maneuver. This aircraft will return at the conclusion of the fleet readiness demonstration and perform a post-strike photo reconnaissance sortie to record target destruction. Approaching at 9,000 feet altitude. Douglas Sky Raiders, each loaded with 12 250-pound bombs, are nearing their roll-in point for a 30-degree glide attack. Now, the flight, led by Commander Andy Andrews from Brockton, Massachusetts, will saturate target B with 6 tons of bombs. This aircraft and tactic were used extensively in Korea for both close air support and carrier airstrike sorties. Sky Raiders are still used for many missions, such as low-altitude, long-range strikes. Originally built in 1945, the propeller-driven Sky Raider has evolved through 7 basic models encompassing 49 different versions in its long life. Few aircraft can match the remarkable Sky Raider's versatility. Now, closing at 450 knots near ground level to your far right and unable to be seen right now, Douglas Skyhawk jets, each with 18 250-pound bombs, approach their pull-up point for a loft attack. Now, both aircraft and tactic are an example of modern carrier airstrike potential. The Skyhawk is the fleet's primary light attack aircraft, and the tactic provides standoff for protection from modern target defenses. A fast, low-level penetration like this is difficult for an enemy to detect and counter. The Skyhawks, led by Commander Charlie Banks from Marshall, Texas, will execute escape tactics while 9 tons of bombs hurtle for 3 miles toward the target beyond position C. This low-level standoff tactic is devastatingly effective against heavily defended areas. A multiple carriage bomb rack developed by the Navy gives the Douglas Skyhawk and other jets up to 6 times the number of bombs they could otherwise carry. You will note that the Skyhawks in this event will have lofted 1.5 times. 1.5 times the bomb load dropped by the older Sky Raiders. Although aircraft vulnerability is reduced by standoff attained with loft tactics like just demonstrated, this technique lacks the accuracy required for attacking point targets and is generally limited to stationary or area targets on pre-planned strikes. To increase accuracy and versatility to attack small targets of opportunity from a distance, the Navy has developed the supersonic guided air-to-surface bullpup missile. Now, visually guided by the pilot through radio control after launch, Bullpup A can accurately deliver a 250-pound warhead against small, hard targets, mobile or fixed, from ranges up to 9 miles. Having softened an enemy's defenses with standoff weapons or tactics, close air support sorties such as rocket attacks can press nearer to targets for more assured kills. We will demonstrate our rocket developmental evolution by featuring increasingly more powerful rocket attacks in the next 3 events. We begin with the 5-inch high-velocity aircraft rocket, now called HIVAR, but known by old-timers as Holy Moses. Developed at Knots in World War II, HIVARs were fired during the Battle of the Bulge. HIVARs were also used extensively in Korea and are still a potent weapon in our ordnance stockpile. Equipped with fixed fins, HIVARs must be mounted individually on an aircraft. Thus, the number of external ordnance stations determines how many HIVARs can be carried. The Sky Raider, with 12 stations, carries more of these weapons than our jet attack aircraft, which, for aerodynamic reasons, have fewer stations. Our next demonstration will feature the 2.75-inch folding fin aircraft rocket. Because of its folding fin, quantities of these rockets can be loaded into pods for increased firepower. Each Sky Raider in this event carries 12 pods separately loaded with 7 rockets for a total of 84 each. This is about twice the destructive firepower witnessed in the preceding HIVAR demonstration. Developed, production engineered, and pilot produced here at Knots, over 16 million of these 2.75-inch rockets have been manufactured for the Navy, Army, and Air Force. multiple 5-inch rocket capability to our jet attack aircraft led to the completion at Knots late in 1958 of the Zuni rocket. Zuni is a 5-inch high-performance folding fin aircraft rocket suitable for air-to-air and air-to-surface missions. 4 interchangeable warheads permit the weapon to be tailored to the target. Carried in a pod of 4 suspended from an ordnance station, rockets may be fired singly or in salvo. Zuni has twice the velocity of the high bar and 10 times the warhead weight of the 2.75-inch FFAR previously demonstrated. Having subdued an enemy's defenses with bomb and rocket assaults, low-level napalm attacks to burn surface targets can be pressed to close quarters. Now, in the distance, at ground level, Douglas Skyhawks close at 500 knots to saturate Area H with an inferno of fire. Few assaults are as fearsome as a napalm attack. Knots is striving to increase the effectiveness of this devastating kill mechanism and to make it more compatible with modern high-performance aircraft. Better and more effective additives, new fuels, and improved igniters are sought, as well as new techniques to hold flames on the target. Mr. President, with the carrier airstrike completed, Crusaders, one high and one low, return to execute their post-strike photo reconnaissance of the target area. Sir, the pictures they take will be processed for your review. The remainder of our program will be devoted to new weapons presently undergoing development for test here at the Naval Ordnance Test Station and is classified confidential. Flight demonstrations will be made by pilots from the Naval Air Facility, commanded by Captain Jack Huff from Council Bluff, Iowa, and Air Development Squadron 5, commanded by Commander Harry O'Connor from Winthrop, Massachusetts. Some of the devices you are about to see.
Some of the weapons demonstrated for the President during the firepower display were in the test and evaluation stage and would soon be available to the fleet. Others were still undergoing feasibility tests or development. The next 3 events illustrated the evolution of the aircraft gun during the past 20 years. Although missiles are now our primary air-to-air weapons, our aircraft are still equipped with guns for strafing missions. During World War II, 50-caliber machine guns firing at approximately 750 rounds per minute, as demonstrated by this North American Trojan trainer, were standard aircraft armament for both aerial combat and strafing missions. Weapons of this type are now in use in Southeast Asia. Our present primary aircraft gun, the 1,000 round per minute 20mm cannon, is demonstrated by 2 Chance-Vought Crusaders. With 4 of these weapons on each aircraft, the target is strafed at the devastating rate of 8,000 rounds per minute. Spraying more ammunition than the 820mm cannon just demonstrated is the Skyhawk, carrying 3 high-peg pods. The Navy-developed high-peg fires at a faster rate per barrel than any other automatic weapon ever produced and is quickly interchangeable with bombs or rockets. To demonstrate how our aircraft can gain and hold airspace superiority, essential for successful airstrikes, a Crusader launches a target rocket, then destroys it with the heat-seeking Sidewinder 1A. Developed at Knots and now being produced in NATO countries, Sidewinder 1A has been fired successfully by Chinese nationalists against Chinese communists. Past experience has shown that the best fighter aircraft are frequently excellent bombing platforms. A brace of McDonnell Phantom II all-weather 2-place Navy-developed fighters demonstrates the capability of our fighters to double as bombers by attacking with heavy bomb loads. The Phantom is capable of speeds in excess of twice the speed of sound. and holds most of the world's performance records. The Phantom can be configured for both air-to-air and air-to-ground missions simultaneously, and has been dubbed by the Navy and Air Force the world's best fighter airplane. If we were able to control local weather, our armed forces would possess a powerful weapon and unprecedented operational flexibility. Understudy at knots are techniques for closing mountain passes or clearing cold Arctic ground fog. In this demonstration, 160 pounds of silver iodide smoke is producing 100 million billion particles. In proper atmospheric conditions, each particle would produce a snowflake. Until recently, pilots had only a marginal chance of safely escaping from an aircraft in an emergency at low altitudes. In 1960, Knots provided the fleet with an on-the-deck ejection capability called Rocket-Assisted Personnel Ejection Catapult, or RAPEC. This event demonstrates RAPEC by ejecting a lifelike dummy from a jet trainer. The acceleration forces experienced with this device are well within acceptable physiological limits, as testified by approximately 100 Air Force and Navy pilots who owe their lives to safe ejection with RAPEC.
Mr. President, distinguished guests, as a finale to our demonstrations, Carrier Air Group 11, recently returned from duty in the Western Pacific and operating from USS Kitty Hawk at sea, approaches in formation to salute you. The Air Group commander is Commander Warren O'Neill of Boston, Massachusetts. Aircraft in their wake will lay down a covering smokescreen to draw a curtain over our demonstration area and to close our program. This act will conclude your briefing at the instrumented ranges of the Naval Ordnance Test Station. Mr. President, within a few moments, you will be escorted on a tour of the station. May we wish you continuing fair winds and tides, and pledge that the might and expanding knowledge of the United States Navy stands ready to assert its role in national defense. Boatswain, pipe all hands.
Following the firepower demonstration, Mr. Kennedy drove to Michelson Laboratory, one of the world's most complete weapon research and development centers. Knott's technical progress during the 20 years since its founding was illustrated in an exhibit arranged around the main entrance to the laboratory. Michelson Laboratory is the heart of the Knott's complex. The building encompasses more than 10 acres of floor space, all serving the far-reaching needs of research and development. In this building, a weapon system may grow from concept to final fabrication. On display in the closed security area were new classified weapons and instruments. Mr. Kennedy was able to review hardware and data on systems displayed at the firepower demonstration, plus other items not suited to such a presentation. After inspecting the classified exhibits, the President returned to the lobby where Dr. William B. McLean, the station's technical director, described briefly the achievements of Albert Abraham Michelson, the Navy's outstanding physicist for whom the laboratory was named. Dr. Michelson, a Naval Academy graduate, was the first American to receive the Nobel Prize in Physics. As a naval officer and scientist, he believed science to be the cornerstone of weapons development. To provide the President with a memento of his visit to the station, Captain Blenman presented Mr. Kennedy with a model of the Knots-developed Shrike missile. Upon leaving Michelson Laboratory, the President's motorcade drove through the community of China Lake, which is home for most of the military and civilian personnel assigned to the station. Knots began its career with a new idea as a joint military-civilian venture in which both partners would contribute their special skills. This Navy-built town has grown since November 1943 as a small airport leased from Kern County and 650 square miles of barren desert land to a research and development facility worth over $300 million, with a population in excess of 12,000 and a 20-year history of distinguished progress in weapons development. In 20 years, Knots-developed ordnance has proved its effectiveness, not only for the Navy, but also for the Army, Air Force, and our allies. The presidential briefing came to an end where it had begun, at the Naval Air Facility. The President personally greeted each of the pilots who had participated in the demonstration. In a brief informal address to the people of China Lake, Mr. Kennedy described his impressions of his visit. He was introduced by Captain Blenman.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Captain, Mr. Secretary, I want to express a warm word of appreciation to all of you. We are concluding a trip through the military installations of the United States, which started 2 days ago. The Air Force Academy in Colorado, down in New Mexico, the testing at White Sands, and now here to California, San Diego, the Marine Corps, and the Kitty Hawk last night, and now to see the work that you're doing here. I must say I'm impressed by two things, particularly in this journey to California. First, I've never seen any healthier-looking children, which is the best advertisement that I've heard for this state, and I want to express commendation to all of the mothers and fathers who are bringing up what looks like some of our best future citizens. And I also want to express a word of thanks to all of those of you who worked for our country in this decade, those of you who fly, those of you who maintain the planes, those of you who may be the wives or the children of those who serve our country, those of you who may work in research, those who may work in civil service. I think all of us today in 1963 are proud of the fact that in one way or another, in one place or another, all of us have an opportunity to serve the United States. This is the last best hope. And I think in 1963, I cannot think of a prouder statement when asked what our occupation may be than to say, I serve the United States of America. We want to thank all of you.
Mr. Kennedy's final official act was an inspection of the Marine Honor Guard, commanded by Major Maurice Rose. This review by the President of the United States was a fitting honor, for the Knots Marine Barracks retired their colors on this day after 18 years of service at China Lake. Music by the El Toro Marine Band added stirring color to the occasion. The U.S. Naval Ordnance Test Station had demonstrated significant accomplishments, and with this visit by the Commander-in-Chief, had logged another signal honor.